Hello and welcome back to AP World History and Modern. So today we're going to go over the Dbq rubric largely and do a periodization review. So last video we looked at the LEQ and there's a lot of similarities between the Dbq and the LEQ rubric, namely the thesis point, the contextualization point, and obviously you need to bring in evidence. Obviously the primary difference between these two rubrics deals with the documents themselves, so the sourcing points and the evidence from the documents. So you can see where the bar is set here on these rubrics. So in order to earn that first document point, the bar is set. You have to use 3 documents to address the topic of the prompt. And that's good because if you notice, it doesn't say to support your argument, which means you don't have to earn the thesis point in order to get access to that first evidence from the documents point. So that makes that a pretty attainable bar for most students to be able to get, right? So, and remember, you really earn these points through your own explanations, your voice, your words is where you earn these points. So really make sure you're developing this, in your own words. As far as that second evidence from the documents point, this is, the bar set here is 6. And this is what we are told anyway, is that it's 6. And these 6 have to be used to support an argument, which means you do have to earn that thesis point in that the documents are being used to support the categories of analysis and the assertions that you have made in your thesis. So this is one of those things where, try to use them all if you can. Having gone over the mock exam and all of this, some things to keep in mind here is, we have not done a full Dbq in class, right? The first time we did this was on the mock exam. We don't do it because we can't. We have limited time in class. So I always give you modified versions of Dbq. I give you 5 documents instead of 7 documents. My rubric is adapted as well because of that. But I always kind of like to make comparison to people who run marathons. I am not a marathon runner. I've never attempted to run a marathon, but I've talked to a lot of people who've trained for marathons, and what I've been told from them is that very rarely do they ever actually run 26.2 unless it's the actual marathon. In all their preparation work, they're doing shorter distances. Maybe 2 miles, one day, 5 another, maybe every once in a while, right? Especially as the event gets closer, maybe even run up to a half, right? But the idea is if you can run and you can run 8 miles, or if you can pace yourself for 13 miles, then there's no reason, right? Then you can't just continue with that, right? And do the entire thing. And that's kind of how I've always kind of attacked preparation for these Dbqs is, there's constraints in which we have that we can't do anything about. So, we build the foundations. And as long as you have those foundational skills to write these things, then just take the extra time that you're going to be given and use it and do it. And make sure you use every single minute. And this is kind of something else we talked about in class with this is having now gone through the mock and see all the, how all the scores are balanced with each other. Missing a single point on this Dbq rubric is similar to missing, depends on the year and norming, but somewhere in the neighborhood of like 4 to 5 correct multiple choice answers, right? So every point on this Dbq rubric is a set plus of multiple choice questions. So, and I always try to tell students in class, you would not get to, question 45, and have 10 minutes left over in the multiple choice section. You wouldn't get to that point and just stop because you're tired. So why would you do that with the writing section? Because that's literally what you're doing, right? You're literally leaving points hanging, at that point. So if you've got 10 minutes left over, then rewrite your thesis to try to make it better, right? Increase your odds of getting that point. If you've got 10 minutes left over and you've already done that, then try to develop a new claim and try to work in a new document or two, right, to an argument. Do whatever you can. Maximize the amount of time that you use to try to get every single point possible, even if that means being redundant. It shouldn't have to mean that, because if you're doing it right, then you should use the entire time anyway. But don't leave points hanging, right? These are very, very valuable points. And the same is true for sourcing. So I don't recommend sourcing all 7 documents. It's hard, right? But try to source 4, right? Maybe 5 if you can. And one of the great things about trying to source is, and we see this all the time, what we do in class is, even if you do not correctly source a document, or if you don't earn the credit for sourcing the document, in just trying to source it often means that you're using your own words to work with that document, which increases your likelihood that you're going to get the evidence from the document's point, right, for that. So try to source, right? Really, really try to source and fit that into those body paragraphs. All right, and then complexity, which we've talked about numerous times. All right, so that's your basic rubric. In class, we went over the mock exam responses. They are on your Google Slides on Google Classroom, if you want to go over your responses for that. All right, so today in class we did a periodization activity. There's a couple ways you can do this. I mean, this could easily be just put into a Kahoot. However, I hate technology, and we do use Kahoot sometimes, but not very much, right? So what we did in class with this is, for most classes, not all, but most classes, we get into groups, right? For 3 or 4 kids. The kids made little Post-it notes with A, B, C, or D, or just folded paper, so they could hold an A, B, C, or D as their answer. And we went through these, and we just played a review game, right? And the winning group received a piece of salty black licorice from last time I was in Denmark. All right, or Sweden. I think it was Denmark. Right, so you can smell it right through the video, I am sure. If you're not familiar with these things, they are legit. All right, so anyway, so it's A, B, C, or D. So since you're just, since I'm assuming you're on quarantine watching this, let's just kind of run through the answers and just kind of test yourself. As far as review activities, this is a nice little quick, easy thing to identify strengths and weaknesses. So if you're asked, the Russian and Ottoman empires collapse, right? The first thing you should ask yourself is, which period, right? Hopefully you're correctly able to identify that this is D, right? But also hopefully you're able to identify a little bit more than that, right? These things are both connected to World War II. This is the Bolshevik Revolution in 1917. This gave rise to the Soviet Union, right? You think of Lenin during this time. You could think about Red Terror, Russian Civil War, right? You can, hopefully your mind starts to kind of think about some of this stuff. Ottoman Empire following World War I, right? So that fragmentation of it. You might start thinking about, Sykes-Picot and, the fracturing of what used to be the Ottoman Empire, and, the creation of the modern Middle East, and Ataturk, and, right, what are the policies of Ataturk? These secular reforms of Ataturk. Hopefully this is the kind of stuff you think of, right? If you're looking at this and I don't even know what time period it is, then maybe that's a good thing for you to target your review on. All right, so that's really what this is just, do you know it? Does your mind start kind of walking through these things? Maybe start applying some of the skills and connections that you're seeing, or are you totally blank and this is a weak area and I need to focus? That's all this is. So let's just go through this. I'm not sure the best way to do this over the video. I think the best way is just do it like this. I'll pop it up. I'll read it. I'll give you a second to think what you would have put, and I'll just kind of tell you the answer. All right. So European Christianity forms syncretic religious beliefs with indigenous Latin American and Caribbean faiths. All right. So A, 1200 to 1450. B, 1450 to 1750. C, right, 1750 to 1900. Or D, 1900 to to present. All right, so hopefully that was easy. The answer to that is B, and hopefully what's going through your head is, oh, I remember doing that Columbian Exchange religious syncretism project that you assigned in Condomble and Santiara and Our Lady of Guadalupe, and hopefully that's what's going through your mind right now. Okay, and that all rings a bell. Russian Empire emancipates serfs in order to create new labor force. All right, so the answer there is, and feel free to pause if I start telling you the answer and you're still thinking. The answer there is C. All right, so this is in the early 1860s, relatively the same time that the emancipation of enslaved Africans in the United States, right? The end of chattel slavery in the United States. All right, so early 1860s is Tsar Alexander II. All right, so let's want to see that take place. Chinese invade Vietnam, discover quick ripening champa rice, experience population increase. Right, technically, these are these are tribute state kind of stuff. These are pre-1200 technically. So there you go. A would be the best answer for that. Slave revolt in the Caribbean creates a free black empire. Sorry, republic. Excuse me. All right, so the answer to that obviously is C, and hopefully you can identify what that is. So hopefully you can identify that's probably referencing Saint-Domingue, the Haitian Revolution. Can you identify a leader with that? Maybe Toussaint Louverture comes to mind, or after he gets captured and sent out to France, Dessalines might come to mind. Right, so hopefully these all come back to you. Exchange of crops, culture, animals, disease, pathogens begins between Afro-Eurasia and the Americas. Right, obviously, this is B, right? So hopefully you're able to identify what this is. We had 3 separate reading homeworks on the Columbian Exchange. We kind of beat this one to death hard. Hopefully that's familiar to you. South Asia partitioned into 2 states because of irreconcilable religious differences. The answer to that is D, right? So this is 1947. So what are the 2 states? Hopefully you know those. So India, Pakistan, and then eventually East Pakistan, which eventually becomes Bangladesh, and eventually the rise of Sri Lanka, etc., etc., etc. Portugal creates trade post empire, Indian Ocean. So that is B, right? So, right, and every time we do this, I always ask the kids in class what the name of the vocab word is for the tax that the Portuguese required, right? Others to pay. All right, Abbasid Caliphate comes to an end. All right, so that's obviously 1258 for a year. So that should give you the answer. Who does this? This is the Mongols. All right. Substantial number of Asian migrate to the Americas for agricultural labor. All right, so what is the answer for that? All right, so this is one of those, largely C. As chattel slavery comes to an end in the Americas, you're going to see an increased demand for indentured servitude, right? Hence changing the demographics. New racial classifications, mestizo, mulatto, Creole, emerge in colonial Latin America. All right, so the answer to that is B, right? So the Casta system is what that is referencing there. Tonsimat Reforms, right? Ottoman Empire provokes conservatives by its attempt to secularize education, define society as a collection of individuals equal before the law. Right, so when is that? So the answer to that one will be C, because first Tonsimat is in 1839 and the second Tonsimat in the 1850s. All right. Human population increases due to medical and scientific advances, antibiotics, polio vaccines, Salk. So when is that? What year is that? So obviously 1950s is the polio vaccine, so that's going to be D. All right, so this is what we did in class. Just playing a game. And I don't think I need to kind of go through all these, right? So I'm just going to show you what questions we went over. So feel free to pause it on here and kind of read through and have a look, and feel free to email, and I'll give you an answer if you're not sure about this. But obviously, if you're not sure, then if I don't know what Zimanders are, then look that up, right? It's a nice, easy little quick way to review and just identify what you know and what you don't know. So we didn't do all these in class. We did maybe one or two of these pages like this, and then I've got an images one, and I'll show you some of the images that we used. All right, so this is another page, of possible questions, and like I said, just a real quick, easy, nice review activity where you can identify, weaknesses, strengths, and such. All right, so I'm going to move on. All right. And feel free to pause this out. All right, so go through and read all these and see what you know and see what you don't know. Can you pop periods, and then can you then elaborate, right? So obviously you should be reading stuff like this. Like Japan is pulled out of its isolation, quickly industrializes, accepted as an equal power by the empires of Europe. You should easily be able to identify exactly what that means. Right, the what restoration, right? Hopefully that's, hopefully some of these are easy, some may not be. All right, so how much could you kind of go in this? What are the social effects of that? All right, so I think this is the last kind of full page before we get into the images. Sepoys, self-strengthening movement, Janissary. I like this one. Trade is facilitated by paper currency in Asia, and bills of exchange and credit in Dar al-Islam. That's a nice little review one, literally the first week of school. All right, so that's those, right? And then we went through. This is the last kind of page of these that I use. I kind of hop around in class. Different classes I get different sets too, but these are pretty consistent ones. So what is this and what time period? So hopefully you're looking at this and you're thinking to yourself, I remember caravansaries, right? I remember caravansaries. So period one, A, right? A is the answer there, 1200 to 1450. Pax Mongolica, right? Revival of the Silk Road, the Yam system. I remember all that stuff. The Abbasid Caliphate, does, kind of a lot of the infrastructure building of this initially, right? And so it's really kind of pre-A to letter A, right? Next one, Balkan troubles, the boiling point, right? Notice the images of those who are there. This one might be hard to see, right? So this is, talking about the Balkan troubles and Germans and French and British and all that, getting ready to get put into the boiling pot. This is referencing the causes of World War I. So D. The real boxers, right? Notice the stereotypical haircut, the Q, right, that you're seeing there, often used to stereotype Manchus, okay, or leaders from the Qing era. Okay? So notice what this is, right? What time period is this? Right, so Boxer Rebellion. So late 1890s, mid to late 1890s, 1898, when things kind of fire off and they wrap up right around the turn of the 20th century. 1901. All right, this one. This actually is, I like this one because kids trip up on this one sometimes. They automatically want to like jump into, Zheng He during, in the 1430s, his treasure fleet is taken apart following the death of the Yongle Emperor, and the Ming Dynasty then begins to become more insular and builds the Great Wall and, restricts access to their country. That's all awesome. That's what you think of, but you also got to remember you got to read the entire thing. Information superhighway references the internet. All right, so this is the Great Firewall of China, as you can say, internet censorship. Right, this one. Right, so sorry, the internet one is D, by the way. This one here. Right, so what period is this? So this would be B. Right, so this is Inca, right? That is Inca. And I don't know if that's a waru or a terrace. I don't know what that's supposed to be, right? But you can see the irrigation canals, right? You can see the Andes, right? Inti, back there. All right, this one. All right, so the answer to this one is going to be A. This is actually Yuan dynasty, right? So Kublai Khan, right? Kublai Khan. Right, this one. All right, this is D. Right, and it's actually I'm always impressed how well kids get this. This is League of Nations. All right, so post World War I. Why were these terraces built? All right, so I think Champa Rice, Song Dynasty, A. All right, it's being referenced in this image. This is always an aha moment, right? Oh, I remember that. 1517, 95 Thesis, right? Protestant Reformation, Martin Luther, etc., etc. Don't be foolish. Right, so this is obviously World War II. Right, this is World War II. So that's what we went today. That's what we did today. So we kind of just went over the Dbq rubric and then did group group review like that. And first prize got some salty black licorice. So that was it. All right. See you next time.